Limnik Betziyulai Ahazai Bimei Chashmahanim Ifotzi Choymes
Chanuka Sameach, the first night of Chanuka, is a very exciting time. When we start adding our light into the world, we start lighting with one candle and we go up by 8. But we know that there's a discussion in the Gemara. Is that really how it's supposed to be done? Are we supposed to start with one candle and every night we add another one? Or are we supposed to start with 8 candles and every night we go down corresponding to how many days are left, as is the opinion of Beis Shammai? Or do we start with 1 and go up, as is the opinion of Beis Hillel? And I heard a fascinating idea not so long ago that I wanted to share. And perhaps the way that we can frame this discussion is as follows. Are we looking at the mitzvah of Chanuka, when we light the candles, are we viewing the miracle as it was viewed the first year, or are we viewing the miracle as it was viewed in years after that? Where do we have a precedent for this type of discussion? On Pesach. The first night of Pesach, we know, it's not a discussion, we know very clearly, Chayav Adam Liros Atzmo Ki'ilu Yatzami Mitzrayim. You have to actually reenact leaving Mitzrayim. It's not enough to tell the story. You actually have to feel liberated. We have the matzah, we have the maror, we have the yain. You actually have to feel as if you're going out of Mitzrayim at that very moment with your family. And if we view the candles that way, we get a different way of lighting the candles than we view them now. If we're looking at it as the first year, we're standing there reenacting the miracle and our feelings towards the miracle. So then on the first night of Hanukkah, we know we don't have enough oil, but we don't know it's going to last 8 days. We know it's going to last 1 extra day. And so on the first day of Hanukkah, we see it last, or the second day, we see it lasted an extra day, we're very excited. And on the second day, we're even more excited. And on the third day, we're even more excited. On the 5th day, the 6th day, the 7th day, the 8th day, we're so excited, wow, it lasted for 8 days. But it was a gradual increase in simcha. It was a gradual increase in recognizing the magnitude of the nes, that we didn't know how big it would be at the first day. Whereas now, the next year, if we're looking back at it in a commemorative fashion, so it's very easy to say, like Beit Shammai, wow, of course you should light 8 candles, because now we know the potential. Now we know that the miracle on the first night wasn't just that it lit 1 extra night. Now we know that the miracle on the first night was 8. The miracle on the first night was the greatest miracle. And then every day it got a little bit less. Okay, now we know it's 7 more days, 6 more days, 5 days, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1. Right? It's a gradual decrease in our elation because we already knew the potential in the beginning. And we have such high expectations. And perhaps that is why we light according to Beis Hillel. We light every day adding on to an excitement because we're not looking back knowing what we know, but rather we're re-experiencing the miracle. And I think this is a very important lesson for us to take with us to Bnei Akiva, to education, to madrichim, to chanichim, wherever it is, teachers. Because as a child, or really even as adults, when you're going through an experience, you don't know the end of the experience. When you're taking a test in school, when you're applying for yeshiva and seminary, when you're deciding how you want to spend your summer, when you're deciding how to run a pu'ula, when you're applying for a job when you're older, when you're taking a final in college or university, whatever it is, when you're going through the experience, you don't understand necessarily the potential you have. Only as you're going through it, you understand the potential. And perhaps the only thing greater than the fear of failure is the fear of the burden of success. After you already accomplished something and you did something great, and then you realize, wow, if I wouldn't have tried, I wouldn't have accomplished that. If we wouldn't have lit the candle on the first night, we wouldn't have realized that we had a chance. And as we're dealing with children, you're dealing with young adults, and you're in a world where you're interacting with people going through experiences, it's very easy to look at them and say, I know you have the potential to do this. I know you have the potential to get 100. I know you have the potential to run the greatest activity. I know you have the potential to be in the greatest classes or the greatest extracurricular activities and to be productive 24/7. But when you're going through that experience, and when that child is going through that experience, when you're going through that experience, when we're each going through our own experience, we don't necessarily see it. And we have to take it 1 candle at a time. We have to view other people's experiences with empathy and understanding that even though we might see the potential that others have, understanding that when somebody else is about to start a new endeavor, when somebody else is going through a challenge in their life, whenever it is, they don't see the 8 candles at the beginning. They're going through adding in 1 candle at a time. And I think if we could learn that from Chanuka, if we could learn that we look at each person individually, we look at each person not just understanding their potential, but understanding the experiences that they're going through in order to reach their potential, then we'll have a better understanding of the mitzvah of Chanuka. We'll be able to create much more light in the world, and we'll be able to understand, like Beis Hillel, that it's true we know the miracle was 8 lights, and by rights, perhaps knowing what we know now, we should start with 8 candles. But we don't know what we know now, because we're in their shoes. We're in the shoes of the Jewish people who are going through the Nes at that time with this uncertainty of what's going to be with tomorrow's world. What is tomorrow going to look like? What is next month going to look like? With that uncertainty that perhaps some of us could relate to in the world we currently find ourselves, and not just look back and say, why don't you celebrate with so much excitement on the first night, but to just understand the process that they went through and that we're going through as well. And hopefully then we can get to the last night of Chanuka, understanding our potential, understanding the process, and celebrating a better world in a week from now than that exists today. Chanuka Sameach.